Welcome to another episode of Erik Wait Whiskey Studies, and in this series I'm sharing my trip to the UK, in which I spent 2 days in London, England, and 2 weeks traveling around Scotland visiting distilleries, meeting up with fellow whiskey tubers, and I took a 2-day class on the diploma on Single Malt Scotch Whisky at the Edinburgh Whisky Academy, and then headed north up into the Highlands to visit distilleries in Speyside, in the Highlands, and on Orkney. So in this video, I'm going to share my visit to Aberlour Distillery. Aberlour is located in Strathspey, Scotland, within Speyside, and it is located at the confluence of the rivers Loire and Spey near Ben Nevis. It was founded in 1879 by James Fleming, and today it is owned by Pernod Ricard, which also owns Glenlivet Distillery, which was my next stop. Now, one of the things I'm doing in this series is not just sharing the whiskeys and some photos and video that I took, but also giving some little tips on traveling through Scotland and sharing my experience in traveling through Scotland. So one of probably the most important things to do when planning a trip is, where are you going to stay? And there is a place that I would highly recommend staying. I didn't stay there this trip, but I did visit it. I stayed at the Huntly Castle Hotel, which I'll get into in another video. But there is a really cool hotel just right down the road from Aberlour, and that's the Craigellachie Hotel, which is also home to the Copper Dog restaurant and whiskey bar. So I did a little tour of the hotel. I checked out their really impressive whiskey bar upstairs, and then downstairs I had dinner. The food was really good. And then I went over to the Copper Dog whiskey bar and enjoyed some local music there. There was a couple there playing sort of Scottish folk music, and I enjoyed a dram from Talisker Distillery. If you're planning a trip to Speyside and you're looking for something that's central, that's local, that has a really great restaurant and a really great whiskey bar, the one upstairs is for people staying at the hotel, the one downstairs is open to the general public, then I want to highly recommend checking out Craigellachie. However, you're going to want to, I would say, make reservations way in advance. Don't expect to just walk in there and to be able to make reservations. Also, across the street from there is the Highlander Hotel, which I stayed at in June 2018. That's also a really good whiskey bar. The hotel isn't all that great itself in terms of staying there, but they have a really good whiskey bar and a really great collection of Japanese whiskeys, because the owner of the hotel and bar is Japanese. Alrighty, let's get into a little tour of Aberlour Distillery. So as you may know, Scotland has very strict laws in regarding to drinking and driving. So there is a zero tolerance, which I highly commend, right? The one thing, you don't want people to get injured, you don't want people to get killed, you don't want to kill anybody else, but also, should someone get in an accident because of drinking and driving, and it became known they were just at such and such distillery, then that's how it's going to be reported in the news, and somehow, the distillery is going to be blamed because somebody else got into an accident. They weren't being responsible. So I highly support the efforts of distilleries in trying to curb drinking and driving. So one of the things a lot of distilleries do, if you're driving, or say if you have a group, one person's a driver and the other people are riding along, is the driver can take with them what they call driver drams. At Aberlour, they sell you for about £4 a little box of empty bottles, which I've already emptied, or mostly emptied. These are almost completely empty. And so what I like to do, you could either, take these back home and drink them at home, but another thing I like to do is when you go back to your hotel, sort of chilling out for the evening, is enjoy your driver drams back at the hotel, which is what I did with these ones. So since I've already consumed these, when I got back home, I went and bought a bottle of the Aberlour A'budah. This is batch 64. It's bottled at 59.9% alcohol by volume, and this is matured in Spanish Oloroso sherry butts. However, we did a full tasting there, or they did a tasting, and I had the driver jams back at the hotel, which included the 12-year-old, which is an ex-bourbon and ex-sherry cask. Sells for about $44 in the United States and is bottled at 43% alcohol by volume. Then there is the 16-year-old ex-bourbon and sherry cask, which sells for $70 and is bottled at 40% ABV. The 12-year-old is 70% bourbon, whereas the 16-year-old is 50% bourbon and 50% sherry. The next one is the 18-year-old, which has a heavier sherry and is a double cask. Sells for about $100 in the United States. It's bottled at 43% alcohol by volume. Then there is the, and I'm probably going to mispronounce this, CASGANNAMH, Cas Anma, however I'm pronouncing that. That's bottled at 46% alcohol by volume. It is 70% sherry and 30% bourbon. They also had two distillery exclusive bottles. I didn't buy them because one of them is just 100%, it was a 12-year-old, 100% bourbon, and then the other one was 100% sherry, and that one was bottled at 60% ABV. So the idea is you could buy they're 100% bourbon and 100% sherry, sort of make your own blend of Aberlour whiskey at home. So Aberlour does something a little bit different than a lot of other distilleries. Most distilleries will age their whiskey in bourbon, and then if they're going to do a sherry finish, they'll actually then put it into sherry for, say, could be 6 months, could be a year, could be 2 years, however much sherry impact that they want on the whiskey. Aberlour is a little bit more the way in which a winery produces wine. Let's say a winery is going to produce what's known as a Bordeaux blend or a Meritage. So they have Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Petit Verdot, Malbec, and perhaps Carmenere. What wineries do is they ferment and then age all the wines separately, and then they have a tasting panel, and then they put together various percentages of those various grapes, those various wines, to make their Meritage or Bordeaux style blend. So Aberlour does something similar in that they don't take a whiskey from a bourbon cask and then put it into a sherry cask, but rather they have completed whiskeys, and then they decide what percentages that they want from the cask to go into the particular bottling. So basically their entire lineup, it consists of bourbon and sherry in different percentages and different ages. So I think it's a really sort of a brilliant idea and approach to it. Of course, once you blend bourbon and sherry and you put them together, you would then need sort of a marriage time for the flavors and to sort of become combined. You don't want to call it blending because you don't want to confuse it with a blended whiskey, which is a combination of multiple distilleries. So, but doing a marrying and to have them sort of come together. So, because I didn't want to buy just 100% bourbon, 100% sherry, I decided, well, when I got back home, I'd buy a bottle. Now, I've already gotten past the shoulder on this. I actually had several drams of this during a live stream, and I really, really, really like this whiskey. Now, the one thing I don't like, I'm not a fan of wax tops. Maker's Mark They're brilliant. They have a nice, really nice pull tab. So it's no fuss, it's no muss. You just pull on the pull tab. So they're able to maintain their iconic image of the wax, you know, dripping down the bottle. And yet the pull tab works really well. There is no pull tab on this whatsoever. So getting a knife out is a bit of a hassle. It makes a bit of a mess and so forth. So I'm not a real fan of that. But once you do, you know, with a knife cut through it, it's no big problem. Nice size cork in there. I like that. Alrighty, let's get into it. So it is a dark amber in color, clear on the nose. It is a bit of a sherry bomb. Intense fig, dates, raisins, some brown sugar, honey, sort of more of a crystallized honey, a hint of just a little bit of a nuttiness. I also get, at Christmas time, some people take oranges and they poke cloves into the oranges. So you get, and they use it as an air freshener, so you get this sort of scent of clove and orange. I get a little bit of that as well. Definitely some vanilla, some lighter caramels, cinnamon, and baking spices. All right, on the palate. One more. I'm gonna say I like this 10 times more now than when I did the uncorking. I'm a lot more impressed with it now. Particularly the development and the evolution. When I did an uncorking of it, you know, the neck pour, it was pretty much the same thing, front, middle, and finish. Now it has much more of an evolution and development to it. So I get the dried black fruit notes, fig, dates, raisins. In the mid palate, just some more of the sweetness comes in. So brown sugar, caramels, and on the back end, the spice comes in. Cinnamon, nutmeg, clove, and a lot of vanilla. The orange, you know, the orange with the clove doesn't come much on the palate, but there is a hint of clove on the back end as well. Really nice. Now, I've watched a number of different reviews of fellow whiskey tubers who have reviewed A'budah. I'm probably mispronouncing that. A'budah. But they're all doing different casks. And so that's when something is cask strength or come from a single cask, you can watch 10 different reviews and they're all coming from different casks. So, you know, there could be some cask variation on that. So I watched Social Sippers Club, Jeremy. I watched Daniel and Rex. I watched a real early video of Scott and Bart from Scotch Test Dummies and a few others. And the Captain 3D also reviewed this. So really a lot of great variation, a lot of different perspectives on A'budah. But everyone, of course, Ralphie has reviewed a couple of different ones as well. But each take is different because each cask is different, as well as, of course, our own preferences being different. I really like this one. I bought this one locally here for about $78 plus tax, brought it to $85. Now, it's a non-age statement, but cask strength with this high quality of whiskey for only $85, it's under $100. When you think of some other well-known sherry forward, you know, Highland whiskeys, you know, that are comparable, you're probably looking at about $125 or more. I highly recommend this one, particularly if you can get cask 64, because I really like it. Alrighty, so my next stop is going to be Glenlivet Distillery, which is an absolutely fantastic tour, but you're going to want to tune in for that one. Alright, if you subscribe to this channel, I want to thank you very much. If you haven't yet subscribed, but you like watching my videos, I would greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe. Give this video a thumbs up, share with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, other social network channels. Until next time, cheers. Hey, if you like my review, be sure to check out these other whiskey videos.